Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the State of the State address for the business community, presented by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. Please welcome the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Detroit Regional Chamber, Sandy Barua.
Good morning, and welcome to the Detroit Regional Chamber's annual State of the State address for the business community by Michigan's Chief Executive, Governor Gretchen Whitmer. I'm delighted you have selected to spend some of your valuable time with the Chamber this morning, and I am confident you will find this presentation and discussion with the Governor valuable and engaging. Now, of course, as everything done by the Chamber, we could not do this without our cadre of wonderful sponsors and supporters. I want to give a special thanks to our presenting sponsor, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, our long-term friend and partner, and particularly thank the CEO, Dan Lepp, who also has served as the former chair of the Detroit Regional Chamber, who you'll hear from in just a few moments. I want to thank our premier sponsor, TCF Bank, and particularly Tom Schaefer, president of TCF National Bank, another Chamber board member. And of course, our supporting sponsors, ITC, the MLive Media Group, Vacor Chemical Corporation, and all the great members and supporters of the Chamber. Thank you for joining us for this timely conversation with Governor Gretchen Whitmer.
Please welcome President and Chief Executive Officer of Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, Dan Lepp.
Good morning, everybody. Sandy, good to see you, and it's a pleasure for me today to introduce the governor to give us an update on all that's going on in Michigan. You know, I'm struck as I thought about this day that we are so fortunate in Michigan to have the strong, disciplined leadership of the governor, who's been laser focused on protecting both our health and the economic security of Michiganders. You know, here at the Chamber, we are all either running a business or a large part in making business successful. And you know that with that, we are judged by our performance and by the metrics around our performance. And I don't think that's any different with the governor. She has done a terrific job in discipline. When you look at all the metrics, when you compare us to the states in the COVID fight in the Midwest and really across the nation, she has led the way. And that's with a disciplined approach. It's not, you know, not everybody's going to love it. But when you look at the record and the metrics, it speaks for itself. I'm sure today we're going to hear from the governor on the comprehensive COVID recovery plan. One of the things that I think we should all be aware of is that there's hundreds of millions of dollars sitting on deck to be implemented in Michigan that's already been appropriated by Washington, and it's caught up in a quagmire that I think the governor will want to talk about today. And I think obviously we're going to talk about the budget and with Dave Masseron, our good friend, the new budget director, who most of you know from the city of Detroit. So I think this is going to be a great discussion. There's a lot going on, obviously, here in Michigan. I think we all owe the governor a debt of gratitude. There's nobody that I'm aware of, and I'm a pretty good historian of the state, that has had to deal with as much in a 2-year period as any governor in the history of the state. And I think she's done it in a very, very strong way. So join me in welcoming the 49th governor of the state of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer. Governor?
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for the introduction. It's always good to see you, my friend. And thank you to Sandy and the Chamber, Tammy. And I'm really glad to be here with my budget director, Dave Masseron, who has jumped right in and helped write a great budget. And that's what we want to produce and share with all of you today, the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce. So we'll just jump right in. Yesterday, I was proud to put forward my third budget as governor. We are prioritizing putting people back to work and sending kids back to school safely so we can build back better. The budget is one piece of the larger effort my administration is undertaking to keep Michigan moving forward despite the colliding crises we face. The other piece is the Michigan COVID recovery plan, I proposed to spend the federal funds allocated to us that were in a part of a bipartisan bill supported by a bipartisan contingent of our congressional delegation and signed months ago by President Trump. My fiscal year 2022 budget builds on the recovery proposal I've already laid out and keeps us on the road to recovery. Now, all budgets are a statement of values. It's not just numbers on a balance sheet. And I think this budget makes our values clear. Equitably growing our economy by investing in our children and public education, expanding economic opportunity, safeguarding public health, backing essential infrastructure projects and clean energy initiatives, and protecting the environment. These are priorities I think we can all get behind, Republicans and Democrats alike. And I look forward to getting this budget passed and delivering for the people of our state. First, let's start with our families. The COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated so many underlying issues and ongoing challenges faced by families in Michigan and across the country. In order to keep us on track, we need to make historic investments in Michiganders of all ages and empower them to continue learning in the classroom and to pursue post-secondary opportunities. To do so, my budget calls for the largest investment in K-12 schools in our state's history. This includes money to stabilize schools and school districts and mitigate the impact of the pandemic on students' learning and development. Our children have adapted to changing circumstances in remarkable ways, and we need to do our part to make sure they have the support they need. Working parents have also made countless sacrifices, large and small, to keep their families going. To give working parents a much-needed boost, my budget invests $370 million to significantly lower child care costs, in some cases down to zero. This game-changing investment in early learning will provide access to quality, affordable childcare for 150,000 additional families. It immediately and directly helps parents continue working while giving them the peace of mind to know their kids are going to continue to grow and learn and be safe. I'm particularly proud of this piece because of the impact it's going to have on women and working mothers, people who have borne the brunt of the economic pain during the pandemic. Since the beginning of the pandemic, women have been hit hardest by coronavirus layoffs. And as we approach the year mark, hundreds of thousands, 275,000 in January alone, have been forced to leave the workforce due to the pandemic. It's been called the she-cession for good reason. A total of 2.4 million women, disproportionately women of color, have left the workforce since last February. By making a sizable investment in childcare, we can help alleviate the burden faced by working families, especially women and specifically women of color, who've had to make countless sacrifices to put food on the table and care for their kids. And this investment's a good start, and it will help businesses fill positions that are needed as well. So it's good for all of us. Now let's talk about some of the shovel-ready projects that this budget backs too. I know you're probably tired of hearing me say, fix the damn roads, but I will not stop until we rise to meet the infrastructure challenges our state faces that have been building up for decades. I just want to take a moment here to thank you as members of the Detroit Regional Chamber for championing infrastructure investment over the years. I'm so glad to have you as partners in this effort. And we've made strides, but we have to keep working to move ahead. This budget helps us achieve our shared vision, building on the progress we have made throughout the pandemic to continue strengthening our infrastructure. We're putting $300 million toward fixing the dam bridges, 120 of them in counties spanning across the state from Oakland to Ottawa, Genesee to Grand Traverse, etc. This list includes the Miller Road Bridge next to Ford's iconic F-150 factory. We're also investing in critical water infrastructure, plugging shortfalls in spending and supporting thousands of good-paying jobs for Michiganders along the way. And a significant piece of my budget is dedicated to helping Michigan's businesses and workers pursue their potential. Businesses, especially small businesses, have been hit hard by the pandemic and the resulting economic downturn. You can feel it, you can see it. The pandemic has disrupted every aspect of our lives, and all of us, every one of us, small business owners and students, parents and healthcare professionals, Democrats and Republicans, we need to be united in our fight against the disruption that this pandemic has caused. We all know a restaurant or a nail salon, a cornerstone of a community that is facing tough times because of the pandemic we're living through. But knowing what I know about Michiganders is we are resilient. So to support small businesses, I've already proposed $225 million in the Michigan COVID Recovery Plan to target small businesses left out of other relief programs, ensuring they have the resources they need to recover and grow. And in addition to passing that plan, I urge the legislature to pass the Good Jobs for Michigan legislation, which helps retain and grow our businesses and create even more jobs. We're also launching a brand new $25 million Mobility Futures initiative that supports a statewide effort to ensure Michigan continues to drive the future of mobility and electrification. We put the world on wheels and the industry continues to move forward, so we've got to adapt and leverage our state's competitive advantages and decades of experience to work on the frontier of innovation in the autonomous, electric, shared, and connected vehicle spaces. And the budget also recommends $25 million for the continuation of the Pure Michigan program. Now let's talk about Michigan's dynamic workforce, which has adapted to the new reality we face and risen to the challenge. My budget makes significant investments in our skilled and talented workforce, ensuring that they continue to succeed. Talent, as you all know better than anyone, is often one of, if not the, most important factor in a company's decision for where to do business. And we want to ensure Michigan's workforce is ready to compete for the jobs of today and the future. Our people continue to be the engine of our economy, and their efforts will power us to new highs as we move into and through 2021 and beyond. In the past, I've outlined my administration's broader 60 by 30 goal, working towards 60% of Michigan adults holding a post-secondary degree by 2030. This budget takes tangible steps to make it to that target, which is now less than a decade away. Got to make it a reality. So by putting nearly $200 million into programs that help Michiganders access professional certificates, skills training, and higher education, we can boost their career opportunities amidst the economic downturn. A few highlights. We've put $120 million for the Michigan Reconnect program. This was created with bipartisan support, and it provides Michiganders 25 or older a tuition-free path to attend an in-demand industry certificate program or attain an associate's degree. We put $60 million in for the Futures for Frontliners. That's the program we created, modeled after the GI Bill, post-World War II, to acknowledge the incredible sacrifice so many of our frontline workers made to keep the rest of us safe during this pandemic, offering college tuition to essential workers who've been working tirelessly to keep us safe. We also have $15 million for the Going Pro program, which expands employer-based training grants for new and current employees in high-demand skilled trades. Now, I know we have shared goals in this area, especially on Reconnect and Futures for Frontliners, and I appreciate your support, and I encourage you to reach out to the legislature to make sure that we fully back these essential programs. And now I want to briefly elaborate on the specific impact that this budget will have on Detroit. We're putting $110 million toward bridges in the Detroit area in both Wayne and Macomb counties. We're increasing funding to schools in Wayne, Macomb, and Oakland County by a combined $173.8 million and putting forward a 2% increase for higher education across the region. And we're providing cities in Detroit, in the region of Detroit, with a combined $29 million to help them manage their way through their revenue losses because of the pandemic. By 2022, this budget is laser focused on putting Michigan back to work, getting kids back in school safely as soon as possible. In conjunction with the Michigan COVID Recovery Plan, this budget helps us build a better Michigan for everyone. I'll continue reaching across the aisle and engage with the legislature in good faith to ensure we don't waste a dime of federal aid that we have received so far and make further investments so we can all help the state that we love get back on its feet. You know, I ran on fixing the damn roads, improving education, skills training, protecting and expanding healthcare, and cleaning up our water and our environment. And in the face of historic colliding crises, we've got to do all that and more. This budget takes concrete steps toward the issues I ran on and addresses the high stakes of the moment we face today. It invests in our people, funds key projects, and unlocks our potential. It's balanced, and it proposes a $175 million deposit into our rainy day fund. It's a spark we need to jumpstart our economy so we can get rolling on the road to recovery. In tandem with the Michigan COVID recovery plan that I released last month, my 2022 budget makes a meaningful impact on our state and helps us build back better from the pandemic and the recession. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today. I look forward to reaching across the aisle and engaging with the community and working with the legislature to build back our economy for our kids and our families and our businesses and our future. And we want to get this done by June 30th. So I want to leave you with this. We're all Michiganders first. We share the same goals and values. When we work together toward a common goal, we can make tremendous strides. I know the Chamber and I share a goal to increase skills for our workforce. And as I've laid out in my budget, there are concrete steps I'm proposing to make so that we can make that happen. I want to encourage you to use your positions to advocate for crucial programs that will help us succeed. And with that, I want to open it up. I've got the Budget Director, David Masseron, here with me, and we are happy and looking forward to answering your questions.
This next part of the program is sponsored by TCF Bank. Joining the governor is Budget Director for the state of Michigan, Dave Masseron. And to moderate the discussion, welcome back, Sandy Burua.
Well, Governor, thank you so much for that great overview of your 2022 budget. And Dave, welcome. Welcome not only to the show today, but welcome to your new role as the Budget Director for the state of Michigan.
Thank you very much, Sandy. It's great to be here.
You know, Dave, there's a rumor going around Detroit that you took the job with the governor to get away from me, but I don't think that's worked out so well for you.
No, it's always great to spend time with you.
All right.
I appreciate being here.
Great. Well, we have lots to cover, but before we jump into some of the meat of the governor's presentation, Governor, you and I haven't had a chance to chat much since the beginning of the new year, and I just want to check in. How are you and your family doing? I mean, obviously, 2020 was just I just want to say it was a hell of a year, not only because of what you had on your plate professionally, but you know, you had threats against you and your family. You started the new year as co-chair of the inaugural for our new president. Did you and your family get a chance to, decompress at all during the holidays?
Thanks, Sandy, for asking. Yeah, my family's doing just fine. It has been a hell of a year, as you said. Never could have imagined the circumstances that we've had to navigate, and yet I know that our burden is less than that of many in our state, and I think that's what continues to center my effort and my work. But my youngest child got into the University of Michigan, and even though I've got 2 degrees from MSU, I'm proud to have spawned 2 little Wolverines. So that's a cause for celebration in and of itself.
Well, it's probably a good political move to have a family that represents both of our major state institutions. So I think you're playing that exactly right.
If I could take credit that it was all planned that way, Sandy, I'd be even I would be even more strategic and long-sighted than you already think I am.
Okay. Well, Governor and Director Masseron, I just want to say that there's a lot to like from the business community standpoint in your 2022 budget. Governor, you mentioned our strong alignment on the issues of education and talent. Our chamber took a lead in setting the 60% goal. That's a goal that you have adopted for the state, and we share, around things like mobility. We share that goal and infrastructure. As you mentioned, we're completely with you in fixing the damn roads, bridges, internet connectivity, and all the other parts of our infrastructure. So let's take a look at the big picture of the budget for a minute, Governor. There's a lot of elements in the budget, especially for those of us who've had a chance to go into some of the detail of the budget. I'm going to ask the most important question from the business community. Is there revenue enhancements, or taxes, as they're also sometimes called, that you're calling for in your 22 budget?
There aren't any taxes built into this budget. There are some fee increases in various departments. That's how many of our departments are funded, and many of them haven't had any sort of an increase in a long period of time, and yet the demands on departments continue to increase annually. So those are small pieces of it. But, we're very fortunate that Michigan has, I think because of our COVID response, we've managed quite well. It hasn't been easy, and I never want to minimize the impact that this moment has had on so many different in so many different ways on many parts of our economy. But the fact of the matter is, what we anticipated in terms of the hardship from the pandemic, and what we're seeing is we're in a stronger position than we anticipated, and we have some federal dollars that have been available, and it's put us in a position where we can make some really important investments without calling for additional taxes.
Okay. Dave, let's expand on that, what the governor just said about the federal support. How much of the 2022 budget is anticipating continued federal stimulus or support? So just a simple question. Does it depend on additional federal support?
Thanks, Sandy, for the question. This budget does not. It really is an unparalleled opportunity making use of prior federal support, which cleared up a tremendous amount of room on our balance sheet to make these one-time investments. And the governor directed us to use this one-time funding to invest in our infrastructure, our people, our students, and our environment. So we're using that funding to make these one-time investments to try to move the state forward to recover better than we were before. And obviously, there appears to be a likelihood that additional federal support will be coming. And when that happens, we'll continue to try to make game-changing investments with this kind of once in a generation access to federal funding that appears to be likely in the future.
And Dave, the governor also mentioned kind of the revenue that is held up better than expected at the state level, primarily because we're all now, since we're at home, we're spending less on services and more on hard goods. And there's a difference, obviously, in taxation there. Do you anticipate a change in how people spend going forward in terms of a return to more services, less on goods that might impact the budget going forward?
I think there are a lot of potential changes that could occur as the federal government continues to provide support to the economy, and as we continue to get people vaccinated. The speed at which we recover will be the biggest determinant as to our revenues. At the end of the day, the way that the state has a healthy balance sheet, the way our businesses have a healthy balance sheet, is we get to the other end of this pandemic by getting shots in arms and containing the virus. There will be long-term changes as to how we all operate, and we'll have to adjust when we see that. But right now, I think both the treasurer and I are very optimistic that the virus over the next 6 months, year, will be contained. And when that happens, the economic recovery will begin even more in earnest than we're seeing now. And that will result in an upward pressure on our revenues.
Yeah, well, let's certainly hope so, and I think we're all planning on that. And I do want to talk about vaccine rollout in just a minute. Governor, going back to you, you mentioned in your remarks the importance of the relief package that was passed right after Christmas during the Trump administration. There are current discussions underway, literally as we speak, in Washington about President Biden's $1.9 trillion COVID relief package. What are your thoughts on, how necessary that is? Where do you think there might be room for compromise? We all know that you're close to President Biden and the administration. We'd love your thoughts on that.
Well, yeah, thanks, Sandy. I do think I want to reiterate real quick that we have access to billions of dollars that have been appropriated across the country. Michigan has not yet actually appropriated the dollars at the state level. So we've got resources that are sitting there that are supposed to be going to our vaccine administration and our testing regimen that is absolutely necessary for the normalcy we all crave and getting to that 70% number where we can, feel as though we've got a real semblance of protection against the virus. I need the chamber's help to get that done. The Michigan COVID recovery plan is so crucial for all of us. The debate that's happening in DC right now around this relief package, we recognize as we're simultaneously confronting a health crisis and an economic crisis. And we're in a race, frankly. We're in a race against the variants, right, that are spreading around the globe. We want to get people inoculated, and we need to build our economy back better, as the president likes to, as he talks about it. So the American Rescue Plan is going to help us do both. It's crucial funding for state and local governments that was not a part of the previous packages. And I know the city of Detroit and the state of Michigan and municipalities across our state really are hoping that gets done. It also helps people who are struggling. And I think that those two pieces of relief were not realized in a full way in the last relief package. And that's why I'm hopeful that they can find some common ground, get this to the president's desk and deploy these resources. Because the quicker they're deployed, the stronger our position is in getting our arms around the virus and putting it down, getting our kids back in school, and helping businesses and people that have been struggling over the course of the last 12 months.
Governor, as Dan Lepp mentioned in his opening, you've got a lot on your plate in terms of dealing with your counterparts in the legislature right now. You just mentioned the relief package, the millions of dollars or billions of dollars that are kind of locked up right now that we're unable to deploy as a state that requires legislative approval. You have appointees pending before the legislature to perform top-level state jobs that are critical to the functioning of the state that are also locked up. And then now you have the 2022 budget that you and Dave and your counterparts are going to have to get through. What is your forecast or strategy, if you will, for making the relationship between the executive and the legislative branches perhaps a little bit smoother this year?
I love that question. I'm not surprised because I know the chamber has often focused on making, I think, political discourse civil, and I think that's really important. I have never, I have tried to continue a conversation with the legislature. I hold quadrant meetings every other week, even just this past week, which has been another tumultuous week from the Senate leadership. I think it's really important that the chamber lean in here, and I could use your help, frankly, and I'm going to just be outright. There are two things I really need help from the Detroit Regional Chamber, and you're in a unique position to help with. One is getting that supplemental pass. It is crucial for our state. Two, I know that the chamber leaned in during the Snyder administration, especially when people were showing up with chalk and writing things outside of his home in Ann Arbor. Throughout the last 12 months, I've been working to try to keep people safe and mitigate the economic harm on our state. We've had people showing up with AR-15s outside of my residence, and I think it's really important in this moment that the chamber and the members of the chamber lean in and hold our people who espouse rhetoric that is dangerous accountable and play a real role here. Some of the events of this last year were articulated yesterday in the impeachment trial in Washington, D.C. I listened to it, and frankly, I'd forgotten some of the things that they said, even though I lived through it. If you want to meet in September on Mackinac Island, if we want to get our kids back in school, if we want businesses to be re-engaged fully and get these resources into our economy. This chamber needs to lean on both on getting the supplemental done and on the civility that is necessary to be successful. And if you've not seen Chad Livengood's article in Cranes this week, I hope that some of you will take a look at it, because I think it is a call to action, and the business community can be a great leader in this space that is desperately needed.
Well, Governor, we accept that challenge, and we have said, and I'm happy to say in this forum, that the attacks that have been directed towards you and your family, with the language that has been used, and obviously the serious crimes that have been committed against you are completely appalling and have no place in civil society. And I do appreciate that you have reminded our audience that civility and public discourse is a key pillar of the Detroit Regional Chamber's ethos. And one of the things that we exemplify that by is the Mackinac Policy Conference. And it seems like a long time ago, but it was just the last time we were able to gather on the conference. We had that great ceremony on that nice sunny day on the porch, led by you, where we signed the historic change in auto insurance reform, and it was a great moment of unity, and it was a time before masks and social distancing.
That's right, and you know what? This is a moment where our resurgence from this pandemic and the accompanying recession absolutely is something we should all rally to. We should all be able to recognize this is a moment where we have to join forces, and we may not agree on everything, but none of that should trump excuse the phrase, but none of that should supersede our need to take on this crisis and to put Michigan in the strongest position that we can as we go into these next few months, because it will determine the strength of our economy going forward.
Well, Governor, we have obviously, of all the business groups out there, we have been closer to you than probably most, which is something I hear from my peers across the state from time to time, or if not every day. But we're happy to do that. There's a lot in your budget proposal that we like. The $25 million on mobility, especially our Mich Auto program, is going to be completely behind the rollout of that, and to support our former alum Trevor Paul, who cut his teeth here at the chamber and is now one of your senior team members. The 60% by 2030, and the futures for frontliners, the Michigan Reconnect, Going Pro. All of these are programs that we're going to support, along with the rollout of the federal funds needed for the Michigan My Michigan Recovery program. Let me switch, Governor and Dave, to the vaccination rollout. Now, obviously, the budget that you just presented was for FY22. We're still in FY21 right now. And the big news, obviously, for the next several months is how do we get needles in arms? So, Governor, there are people out there that are, confused as to, how the rollout is working. They hear a lot of numbers. They're not quite sure what the numbers mean, in terms of vaccines that you have versus vaccines that have been delivered in arms. There's 1A, 1B, now 1C. It's a little confusing. What is your approach in this new year to get the most needles in arms in the most simplified way possible?
Yeah, it has been a frustration for every one of us, I can tell you. I feel more confident than I have in months, frankly, after what we've seen over the last few weeks in terms of the federal government's organization and focus on buying vaccines, distributing vaccines. We have seen a consistent increase. We're talking about biologics, and this is not something that using the DPA we can just double overnight. They are ramping up, and I think all Michiganders should be really proud of the fact that we are home to Pfizer. We were the epicenter of hope as those vaccines started to roll out. Every eligible Michigander who wants a vaccine will get one. This process, though, is like a locomotive, as you might have heard me say in the State of the State. It's cumbersome and bumpy and slow and frustrating at first, but it's picking up speed and it's going to get smoother. When we get more vaccines into the state, we've already shown that we can get over 60,000 shots in arms in a 24-hour period because we've done it. We just don't have vaccines to support that every single day. Those vaccines are ramping up. The Biden administration has, shared with us so that we can build out a few weeks in advance. We'd love to build out a few months in advance. And the fact that they've just purchased $200 million and signed the contracts with Moderna and Pfizer means we are going to be able to count more regularly on that increase and a little further out. But those vaccines have to be produced, and that's what we're waiting on. So I'm grateful to our health systems who have been working incredibly hard, our local departments of health who have done a phenomenal job. It has been frustrating, I know, and we're going to have to be a little bit patient, but every Michigander who wants a vaccine and is eligible will get that vaccine. It's just going to take a little more time. Each vaccine that's come in, though, has either been put into an arm or is scheduled to be put into an arm. We're over 1.5 million vaccines, or very close to 1.5 million vaccines have already been disseminated, and we are in the top 10 nationally, and we're in the bottom 10 when it comes to positivity rates. So our strategy to keeping the virus at bay and getting shots in arms, we're delivering on both fronts. But I'm as impatient as anyone. I want to get even more vaccines into the state, and that's part of the issue that we're all confronting.
Governor, I'm going to expand on the questioning regarding vaccine rollout, but I want to go to Dave for a minute. Dave, so much of the vaccine rollout is dependent upon, our public health systems, which are very decentralized across the state. Counties and cities have really been hit hard financially, as you know, from coming from the city of Detroit. What does the state need to do to help localities and local public health get the resources they need to get needles in arms?
Sandy, that's a great question. There's a couple components to that. One is the federal government gave us resources for vaccines. And one of the things DHHS wants to do is enter into long-term agreements with those local departments to build funding certainty. Having come from the city of Detroit, one of the most difficult things in the beginning of the testing strategy was we weren't sure where the federal funding was coming and when, and how do we use our well built up reserves to get in front of that, start the testing. Luckily, as we worked through that process when I was in Detroit, we worked within Deputy Director Hertel in Governor Whitmer's administration to enter into an agreement so that we got some of the state's testing money and were able to continue to build out that infrastructure of Mayor Duggan's testing facility. The city has moved forward, as have every other local health department, on delivering shots and building that infrastructure out, but they need long-term contracts with staffing agencies. They need, for nurses and the like to deliver the shots. They need long-term contracts for space. And the way we do that is we appropriate that federal money and we make it available so that they have that funding certainty. That's one big piece of it. The other is obviously continue to fund revenue sharing and all the different ways we give local government money. The last piece of this, which I think is also really important, is just working together with the legislature to do business the way that government was meant to. When we get a FEMA grant for a particular city to support vaccines, we need to have what's called spend and receive money, which nobody in the world pays attention to but people in Lansing, so that we can immediately route that money through. Because of all of the different discord that's existed in Lansing, that's a much more cumbersome process now for us to go through. So we can get a grant from the federal government to say support the city of Detroit, and now I've got to go back to the legislature as opposed to immediately running the money through. We need to get together with our legislative leaders to smooth that process out. So the second we have a available resource for a local partner, whether it be a hospital or a health department, we can get it out so they have that ability to get in front of all of the other people that are competing for these same resources, right? Everyone in the country right now is out looking for all of the different resources that are needed for vaccines, and they are purchasing them out into the future. And we need to be right next to them with the resources in place out there procuring the same services. So I think really at the end of the day, the governor has told me and has told the entire team, stay laser focused on that goal and working with the legislature so that we have the necessary tools in place that we can act nimbly and quickly at the front end. I'd say this, and Sandy, we work together a lot at the city. I started in a chief operating officer role. And, from logistics and all that we learned there under the mayor, if you start and build that infrastructure at the front end before you have the supplies, which we know we are coming, that locomotive keeps moving fast. If we have this period where we don't have that infrastructure built because resources aren't there, we're going to hit a place where the track isn't in place and it's going to start bumping again. So I guess I'd say at the end of the day, when the governor said she needs us all to lean into working with the legislature, this is one of those areas where there shouldn't be any disagreement.
And Dave, I noticed in the budget you have an increase in the revenue share to the larger cities. I assume that's part of the strategy to get the resources at the local level.
Yeah, it's 100%. Our cities, and obviously I sat in the seat being responsible at the city of Detroit, were hit very hard from a revenue standpoint, and they were the ones on the front line of the response, right? They're the people that provide the EMS, the EMTs, the police and fire response to a pandemic that's needed. And so they've had a big pull on their resources from a service standpoint and a hit on their revenue. So we try to, with this one-time funding, drive more resources to them to help them continue to do the incredible work they've been doing.
Great. Thanks, Dave. Governor, going back to the vaccine rollout, Michigan is probably in the same situation as every other state in the union, that people are a little confused or frustrated in terms of how to actually schedule their appointment. What can you say about, how Michigan is approaching this, and what can you say to our audience that might be wondering, hey, how and when and who do I schedule my appointment with?
Yeah, I mean, I recognize that is a frustration that people have. And yet I've also talked to so many people who have navigated the system and gotten their second shot. Michigan is one of the top states in the country for not just getting one shot in arm, but having a size of our population that's gotten both shots. And that's good. Every shot in arm is a step closer to that 70% number that we all need and want to see. So whether it's scheduling through your local Department of Public Health, or it is at a Meijer, Meier's a great partner for us, or it's, if you're a Detroiter, going to the TCF center that the mayor and has helped to build out of your hospital system. There are a lot of partners that we have, and that's why we've built up this ability to get to over 60,000 shots in arms a day. We're just waiting on the shots. We're just waiting on the vaccines. And that's the frustration, is when people go to get signed up, there's not an opportunity yet because we just don't have enough vaccines. But as I said, that's increasing. So to be persistent and to be patient, we've got to give each other a little bit of grace in this moment, because it is going to continue to be a little bit bumpy. But as these vaccines come into Michigan, every single person who wants a vaccine will be able to get one. We all need to continue masking up and practicing social distancing and following the safety protocols so we can stay safe. So there are a lot of pieces to it, but to be persistent and to be patient. It's hard. It's been a long, tough year, and I know we're all tired of this, but we've got to see this through for everyone's sake.
Well, I'll certainly echo the call for grace. This is something that we've never dealt with before as a society, or at least in 100 years, and certainly not in modern society. So we're all kind of creating the airplane as we're flying it, and I think we all deserve to give everyone else a little bit of that grace. Governor, what's the role for businesses? Large businesses, large manufacturers, in terms of being able to deliver shots to their own employees. Is that going to be an option? What should smaller or mid-sized businesses do to help their employees navigate this process?
Well, I think it's, I appreciate the question, Sandy, and I think it's important to remind everyone that it's a Michigan-based business that has been leading the way to eliminate COVID. And when I talk about the Good Jobs program, I always think it's important to point out Pfizer's, build out in Portage was the first Good Jobs project, and that is the epicenter of where they're building out to even produce more vaccines. And so it's a great Michigan story, and made us all incredibly proud. We've got a lot of partners, whether it's TCF with the center, or Meijer, who are helping us to distribute vaccines. As more vaccine becomes available, as Pfizer ramps up, and now that the United States government has secured 100 million more vaccines from Pfizer and 100 million more from Moderna, as we see the Johnson & Johnson vaccine start the process at the FDA, hopefully they'll get their early use authorization and be able to deploy those shots. We will have different tools that we will be able to use in different parts of the state. Each has their own requirements in terms of how they're handled and what the time frame is between a first and a second shot, whether there is even a second shot. And so we will have more tools coming online. And that's why our business partners are going to be really important, because as those vaccines ramp up, we will be able to deploy some in bigger, employers where we have a concentration of people and can get the shots in arms. And so we've got a lot of private businesses that have already gone through and will be a partner as those vaccines come online. And we're looking always to expand that. So we welcome that partnership.
Right. Well, and we appreciate that, Governor. And I know you've heard this from us and from others, but would certainly encourage you and your team as you're working through, getting to that 70% goal that, many of our large businesses with, thousands of employees, are ready to help you with their own employee kind of shot administration programs to get needles in arms. And then also, the more simplified we can make the kind of criteria for rollout, I think will also help people kind of understand, where they fit, even including kind of an age-based program. So just kind of, I'll just gently nudge those two issues onto your radar yet again as we get ready to wrap up this session today.
Yeah, those are absolutely a part of the discussion. We're currently, mirroring the CDC, but I do think that they are looking to incorporate those kinds of new guidance. So I do think recognize the value in that, and also that as more vaccines come online, a lot of the prioritization will be a distant memory at one point. We're not quite there yet, so. We've got to be very smart and strategic with how we are prioritizing, but eventually that will be a distant memory.
Well, we are just about out of time, and we've talked a lot about issues and areas where the Detroit Regional Chamber and Governor Gretchen Whitmer are in strong alignment, and we're proud to be aligned with you. But there is an issue where we disagree fairly significantly, and that's regarding how to handle Line 5. I'd love for you to give your thoughts in terms of how you view Line 5 and, what is the alternative if the tunnel for Line 5 across the straits is not built and completed.
I think it's important that we have a very thoughtful conversation on this subject. And obviously we have limited time today, but I recognize that one of the most important things that I need to do as governor is to protect the public health of the people of the state. And a pipeline that is going through the Straits of Mackinac that is not maintained and that is quite old and is a real threat to the public health of our state. So we have moved forward with the Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy as move forward with issuing permits for the tunnel, which is the alternative to having a pipeline in the water. That process is moving forward. But we want to ensure that the project is compliant with state environmental statutes, and that is continuing to move forward. With regard to the pipeline that is currently in the water, though, it is old, it has not been maintained, and we've got significant concerns because if there was a rupture, which we have seen a number of anchor strikes to that pipeline, it would contaminate the drinking water for 50% of Michiganders, not to mention the impact it would have on everything from agriculture to tourism. But drinking water is the an incredible concern that we all share, I know. So providing an alternative source of energy is something that we are planning out if and when that becomes necessary. Moving forward with the tunnel is something that is continuing to happen as well. And I welcome partnership and robust debate on all of these issues. But protecting the Great Lakes and the Straits of Mackinac is the most pressing concern, considering everything we know about that pipeline.
Well, we look forward to working with you on the pipeline and ensuring that steady stream of energy, especially for our friends in the northern part of the state, and places like the airport, our DTW airport, are hugely dependent upon the energy that is flowing through that pipeline. We are probably at less than the 1 minute warning. I want to turn to Dave just for any final thoughts. Are there what are the top 1-2 things that you want people to know about the Whitmer administration's 2022 budget as we get ready to wrap up this morning?
I'd always generally like the governor to do that wrap up, but since you asked me to, I will.
She'll get her turn.
I think the two things we didn't talk about today that we probably should is the major expansion that we're making in funding for childcare. That's so important to our parents, particularly our mothers, but it's also important to business and getting an available workforce that's reliable. And we're making a substantial over $370 million investment there. And that's going to be really important as we come out of the pandemic. And then the other piece, I think I just circle back to the investment that we're making, the down payment that we're making in our kids and all of the different resources we're trying to drive to our schools so that not only can they continue to invest going forward, but they can make up and have the resources to help our kids make up all that they've lost in terms of time in classroom over the last year.
Great. Thank you, Dave. And congratulations on your new role. And we look forward to working with you. And you're the right man for the job.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Governor, we're closing up. Would love to have you close out our program and final thoughts for our audience this morning.
All right. Well, thanks, Sandy. I appreciate it. I appreciate the work that the Detroit Regional Chamber does and the many members of the chamber. Thank you. 2020 has been a year that is just totally indescribable, and yet there will be whole college courses that talk about the 12 months that were 2020 and maybe the first few months of this year as well. There's no question that we've all been through a lot, but we've been leading, following the science and putting people over just the politics of the day. And when you do that, you get good results. Michigan's been in the top 5 in the nation for lowest new average cases. We've been in the top 10 for vaccine administration for the last few weeks. We'll never know exactly how many lives were saved, but we do know that the latest pause has saved more than 100,000 Michiganders from contracting the virus, according to the U of M study that recently came out. We're going to continue to focus on the data and science. We're going to continue to try to find common ground and keep the politics out of the policy conversation that we also desperately need us to find common ground on. And we're going to press forward, so in a positive way. And so I just welcome and appreciate the partnership of the chamber and the members of the chamber. You're crucial to our mutual success as we move forward. And I just, as always, let's get it done.
Well, Dave, Governor, just want to thank you for being so generous with your time. Governor, we wish you all the best. We are so appreciative of the friendship and the cooperation and your accessibility to myself and others. So Godspeed, and we look forward to working with you. Have a fantastic day. And to our audience, thank you so much for joining us today. We're delighted you'd spend your valuable time with the Detroit Regional Chamber. Governor Whitmer, Director Masseron, thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.